in the
Who
sky
comes
here.
first, your mom, your daughter, or your wife? Give me mom, daughter, wife. Daughter, wife?
Wife replaceable.
Okay. Oh, wow, replaceable. Okay. What's your name?
So this is like hypothetical when I'm like later in life in my 30s when I have all three of those.
Okay.
So I would say at that point I'd probably pick like daughter, then wife, then mom. But I love my mom a lot. I love my mom.
Respect. What about you? How you feeling?
Daughter, if I'm on good terms with my wife, and then mom. But if not, then mom in the middle.
Daughter. Daughter's at one. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh!
Daughter, mom, wife.
Daughter, mom, wife?
Because you know what I'm saying? You can always find another wife. You can't have another daughter. That's your life that you brought into the world. And your mom, my mom brought me into the world. So we go daughter, mom, wife. You know what I'm saying?
I was raised by a single mother, so my mom's got to come first.
Mom first, okay.
Dale,
Good evening.
good evening to you.
And it is a good evening.
What you got there?
It's more of that severed lime.
Severed lime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your cup has a little bit of blue on it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe you should explain it. What's going on? Is that lipstick?
yeah. I occasionally wear blue lipstick to work. That's my
Therapeutic.
My-
Therapeutic.
my
Effect.
my guilty pleasure is wearing blue lipstick to work.
Yeah.
No, so it is admittedly it's methylene blue because I do dip my wife would be disgusted if she saw this cup right now.
She's probably gonna see it.
Yeah, she's
Well,
probably,
right now she's probably gonna be watching
she's gonna
this
set
right
this
now.
right here out of the way, out of the picture. No.
Yeah, we got to talk about the methyl blue.
Yeah, so
at
no,
some point.
it's actually it's actually a drug. But
Like a medical drug.
yeah, it actually technically it's considered a medical drug, though you don't need a prescription actually to get the standard small dosing. We call it, like, for all pragmatic purposes, it'd be like microdosing. You can find it on Amazon. But anyways, it's actually more commonly used as a nootropic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some people don't know what that is.
So yeah, nootropic, basically think boost neurochemical stimulation. And it's one of those things that can really help augment certain things. It boosts mitochondrial function and essentially basically helps your I'm having a brain fart here. It does good things.
It does good things for
It
your
does
brain.
good things for your brain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does good
All
things.
right.
No, but no, in all seriousness though, it actually mitochondrial function helps increase dopaminergic activity along with norepinephrine as well. And in addition, actually, so funny enough, they're actually doing a lot more research on it for the prevention of Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And yeah, potentially with
Prevention, not treatment.
Yeah,
That's
prevention.
cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
prevention. So because technically speaking, we don't know of anything that can technically treat, like, effectively, fully.
Yeah, we
you know,
don't.
get rid of anything. But obviously, there's been a few studies on rats and that sort of thing. But it's been shown to be a really helpful neuroprotective agent. And again, in most cases, when people hear methylene blue, like medically speaking, it's usually used in doses of upwards of 100 milligrams, and that's intravenous. And I'm nerding out here, so
Yeah.
excuse me there.
Yeah.
But
And fun fact, it does make everything it touches blue.
it does. Because it's a blue synthetic dye.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. So make no mistake, it is a blue synthetic dye. It is definitely not natural
Yeah.
from the earth. It is man-made. It's actually a very old drug too.
It's been around.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. It actually has a mild antiseptic properties as well. Well, I shouldn't say super mild because it's actually been shown to kill streptococcus as well. So it's a kind of
Like strep drug?
yeah, like strep. Yeah, the bacteria that causes strep. Yeah, so
okay.
it's pretty interesting.
That's a power drug right there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different stuff on it now, and a lot of different people kind of doing a lot of blurbs on it now, and a lot more research coming out on it. But needless to say, My cup is blue because
Is it
I
methyl
will,
blue? Oh, yeah.
for methylene blue, because I take drops in water, usually between 5 and 10 milligrams.
Mm,
And the reason I take them is as a nootropic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you find it helpful.
I
it
do.
sounds like.
I do find it helpful.
Okay.
It's one of those things that you can notice pretty quickly, actually.
Mm.
Now, it does raise blood pressure. So obviously, if you have any heart conditions, by the way, none of this is medical advice. This is extremely just
Right.
anecdotal.
Disclaimer.
My own personal experience. That's it. Right. And I have not given medical advice to anyone ever.
There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go.
So just with that in mind,
yeah, with that introduction.
yeah, with that introduction, methylene blue can be pretty helpful for me, especially. And we were making a joke earlier about like ADHD and
Mhm.
how I would probably lose my head if it wasn't on my shoulders. But I will say, on that same note, I've found that to be one of the most helpful things as it pertains to realistic functioning and management of ADHD.
Mm,
Methylene blue.
yeah, we need a whole episode on ADHD.
Yeah, we probably do at some point,
Yeah.
and we will.
Yeah,
It's coming, I think.
it's coming. It's
Yeah.
on the way. All
Yeah.
right. So that was a little precursor.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll see the blue cup again.
yeah, I might have one too at that point.
Mm.
But Dale, I sent you a video, and I'd love for us to watch it
All right.
as the springboard of our conversation today, because I've been wanting to pick your brain about this.
Okay. So should I hit play
So,
here?
yeah, go ahead and hit play. It's a video that's been going
Okay.
around on TikTok and YouTube.
So maybe
and
other
stuff.
people have seen this too.
Probably.
All right, I'm seeing
Who
this guy.
comes first, your mom, your daughter, or your wife? Give me mom,
Daughter, wife.
daughter, wife.
Wife's replaceable.
Okay. Oh wow, replaceable. Okay. What's your name?
So this is like hypothetical when I'm like later in life in my 30s when I have all three of those.
Okay.
So I would say at that point I'd probably pick like daughter, then wife, then mom. But I love my mom a lot. I love my mom.
Respect. What about you? How you feeling?
Daughter, if I'm on good terms with my wife, then wife, and then
Okay.
mom. But if not, then mom in the middle.
Daughter.
Daughters at one. Okay. Uh-oh.
Daughter, mom, wife.
Daughter, mom, wife.
Because you know what I'm saying? You can always find another wife. You can't have another daughter. That's your life that you brought into the world. And my mom brought me into the world. So we go daughter, mom, wife. You know what I'm saying?
I was raised by a single mother, so my mom's got to come first.
Mom first. Okay.
Then my daughter.
Then your
my
daughter.
wife,
Then your wife.
Then my wife.
Okay. Why wife at the last?
Because if I have a daughter, like that's my baby.
Okay,
Like
okay,
I gotta put my daughter.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
So, pre-analysis, what are some things you observed from the video? Any patterns, anything that stood out to you?
Well, so it seems to me like they're making this assertion. Well, so this is college guys,
Yes.
right? So that's one thing. The other thing, I just find it interesting that we're like, I guess I find it interesting. It's like, where's the, like, they talk about their mother
Yeah.
being like a pivotal role. And obviously they didn't ask the question, who comes first, your mom, daughter, but the father isn't even brought up at all.
Right. There was just women.
Yeah, it's just
right?
women.
So it was like, it's a very hypothetical question,
100%.
right? Because like, okay,
Yeah.
who comes first in what? Is
Yeah.
it like
Exactly.
right?
And it sounds like immediately they're pertaining to, it almost feels like they're talking about like if somebody had to die.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people interpret it as.
Yeah.
Like when they were, because there are other people who've been doing interviews like this,
Yeah.
like on other YouTube channels and stuff. And I think that's the general gist
Yeah.
of how people interpret it.
Yeah.
But also it's like, but then they're also who comes first in your life? Like that's another way they put it. But again, it's very hypothetical.
Well, and so this is really interesting because I think it's interesting because they make this I respect the love for the mother,
Mm,
or the love for their mother.
yeah.
However, at the same time, if we were looking at this sheerly biologically, that it would stand to reason, like just on an objective standpoint, your mother would be at the last.
Okay, before you go there.
Yeah.
Okay, before you go there. So I think on every single one,
Yeah.
daughter was first.
I think you're right.
And wife was, I think, last most of them.
Yeah, it was wife, I think. Yeah, no, I think she was last most of them.
Yeah. Daughter was first, wife was
Yeah.
last, right?
Yeah.
So just putting that out there.
Yeah.
So going back to what you said, so you'd say it would stand, like from a biological standpoint, that mother would go last?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean? Why?
Only because, like, again, if you were to look at just basic biology and nature, right, the mother has already done her job. She's done. Like, and not to be crude, but like that's just the nature. And actually, yes, the daughter's important. However, I would say this is, oh man, we're gonna get into the weeds here quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm gonna kind of take a turn. Well, so before I go super deep, I'm just gonna start off at a shallow level and just give my own standpoint. So my own standpoint is wife, daughter, mother.
Your personal standpoint.
Yes, my personal standpoint is wife, daughter, mother.
And you have like 4 daughters too, so like 3 daughters rather.
Yeah,
4 children, 3 daughters. Okay, so
now if we're talking about this in order of hierarchical need, right? Like, or rather like where I place current importance now.
Mm-hmm. Wife, daughter, mother.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, how that plays out though, and how it may look, right? I'm meeting a lot of my kids' needs a lot, or perhaps even my kids get, unfortunately, more time than my wife may on certain days, which I don't love. But we both play into that. My kids get more of my wife's time on some days than I do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, those are the priorities that we are both placing. So I think that has an element to do with that. And if we're talking, and also for that reason, like the reason that I pour into that area is so that it can support my wife and her ability to be a mother and her ability to be fulfilled in her life. And so I think on a general day-to-day basis, I think there's a greater level of satisfaction if it's wife, daughter, mother.
Yeah. Why do you think that wasn't a common pick, a common ranking with a lot of what was shared? And by the way, I watched other videos like this, and wife, daughter, mother, it's very rare for wife to be at the top.
Yeah, so
very rare. They said, wife replaceable.
Yeah,
wife, you know,
which is interesting because it's like that's setting the bar very low
for
a wife. Right? Perhaps in today's day and age, with how we view the responsibility of a mother, perhaps like where they see the role of a mother or a wife, rather, it's very shallow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very sad. But I would say that's evidence of that general demeanor, is that the role of a mother and a wife is actually turned to be completely insignificant compared to what it could be and arguably what it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would say also what it should be.
Yeah.
And again, here I am, a guy in his mid-30s, white Christian male. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, so I found it a bit ironic, and full respect to the guy, you know, what they said, and the guy especially who said like he was raised by a single mother.
Totally.
Like, dude,
100%.
Like, huge, right?
I get that.
But I was curious in that sense of like, yeah, but why a single mother, right? Is it because the father maybe had a mindset of not choosing his wife first?
Yeah. Maybe he chose wife. Or excuse me, it sounds like he chose mother, daughter, wife.
Right.
Because he was obviously the boy. So it's
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the deprioritizing of the wife that actually impacts the whole family system. And like when you look in systems theory, which is like family systems and
good old IFS.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's within a family, there's what they call like the marital or parental subsystem, which is like, you know, like husband and wife, for example. and then you have the kids. That's another subsystem, right? And then like within those subsystems, we can create different alliances and all that good stuff. It can get deep, but basically, the general consensus is if the parents' bond is not strong, it trickles down to the kids. And I've seen that in
100%.
you see this in your work, right? And it's this common script I hear is that my kids need me. My wife doesn't need me. Like if I don't take care of my kids are gonna die. Versus my wife she's an adult. Like respectfully, she's an adult. And wife will say this about husband too, is like my spouse honestly can survive, but my kid needs me.
Yeah, I think part of this also comes from the idea that too, you have nowadays more so than ever, you have two parents that are working.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this idea that, okay, well, I'm providing for my kids first. My partner or spouse is off doing their own thing. We come home, we take care of the kids, and then we go to bed. Right. And so I think greatly, again, we kind of missed the mark here in terms of potential for value. It's not to say I'm not trying to tell people, hey, like you shouldn't be a career woman or you shouldn't try to pursue something that's valuable to you. However, I would say that the more that we increase the probability to actually have intentional time with our spouse and partner, to your point, the greater the security of the family unit. But then again, our society today doesn't prioritize the family unit nearly as much.
Right.
And not to make it super simple, but it's like the old adage of, hey, if you want a good life, find a good wife.
Yeah.
So like,
right. Yeah.
And that, like,
yeah.
Because quite literally, your alliance in that area and how well you function together really facilitates your family. Right.
Yeah.
It's not to say that great parents can't have challenges with children, but I would suggest that no, like so many times when you don't see that alliance being well, then
it trickles down.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah, right. Like even if it's coming from like good intentions, like we're burned out, making sure the kids are taken care of, we're taking them to soccer, we're taking them to music practice, we're taking them to these things, and you're just burnt out taking care of the kids. Like the burnout is evident, and the kids eventually they feel it. Kids are so good at catching the emotional energy and vibe of the home. It trickles down.
Uncanny.
Yeah, and even with divorced parents, like blended families where they're divorced, the same thing applies. Because if you're like now taking sides, for example, like you divorced from your spouse and you're trying to get your kid on your side, because now it's my kid because I'm no longer with my spouse. Why should I prioritize my spouse? Because they're no longer my spouse. So I should prioritize my kid, get the kid on my side. That too can introduce a lot of complexity because your kid still has a mom.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's just as bad.
Yeah. It's like your kid still has a mom. So you're turning your kid against the mom that they need.
Yeah, it's still their mother.
Yeah. So there needs to be some sort of collaboration that takes place in order for the sake of the kid. If it's about the kid, if it's daughter first, you still need to
You
prioritize.
still have to prioritize. Yep.
Yeah. So
I would agree. I would say this is kind of like that. We've had these conversations a lot about how to reach your goals and how to actually achieve the things that it is that we want. And I would suggest that this is done as a matter of byproduct, right? If you truly want to take care of your children, then take care of your spouse. Take care and nurture that relationship. And your children will start to reap the benefits of that. Again, it's not to say, I'm certainly not trying to make a blanket statement to say like, oh yeah, like just as long as you guys are good, everything will be fine. Right? It's never that simple. But I would say hands down, they're going to reap the benefits of your ability to have collaboration and true intimacy with your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
and how well you guys work together and how well you're actually on the same page.
So help me understand this, if you're okay sharing from your personal experience, right? So
Yeah.
like that, logistically, it might, maybe some people are wondering like, but it just seems like the kids' needs are so demanding
Mhm.
in terms of how much time we need to spend with the kids, and do the kids like,
Mhm.
maybe I want to develop the relationship with my spouse,
Mhm.
but it's like but the kids just need so much, right? It's that idea of sometimes, the most important things, they don't scream the loudest for your attention.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the urgent over the important.
Mhm.
And I think with your spouse, it's not usually that the need for the relationship is screaming in your face until
It's too
it
late.
gets to a really bad point, and then you're in couples counseling, and it's like, what happened to us? We're roommates.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that happens there, one, if we were to back up super early in the scheme of things, I'd say most people get married and have kids too quickly. Right? They don't spend a long enough period in just being together without children.
Mm.
Like once they get married.
So it's like, before I know my spouse's wife, they've become mother.
Yeah. Because, and I would say also part of the reason for this is because a lot of people end up living together before they get married.
Mhm.
And so somehow they constitute that as, well, we live together and we were together for a long time. But marriage is different.
How so?
Well, in the practical and mundane of the everyday life, marriage is different.
Mm.
Otherwise, people wouldn't get married and people wouldn't resist marriage. Right?
That's a great point.
Because notably, it is different. And I would argue that part of that, again, has become devalued more so, which is why it's seen so easy to rupture. But I would say that admittedly, marriage is different. So for that reason, it's one of those pieces that, hey, it changes once you get married, even if you're living together. Things change. And initially, maybe you don't sense it, but no, there's high value in being able to just be that married couple and take on the challenges that you have there that will come, right? 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line.
Mhm.
So that, hey, now when we add kids to the mix, there's a whole lot more security in that element.
You've built that foundation
Yeah.
necessary to carry the added responsibility of kids.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again,
Would you say that for you, that was helpful?
oh man, of course, in my situation, like I would say that was a must. If my wife and I were talking about this last night, it's really funny because you're like, man, if only we had started a little bit earlier, maybe we could have had a few more kids. Cause like we love our children, and like, man, some days it is just so hard. It's like just gut wrenching hard. And then at the end of the day, we're sitting watching videos of our kids.
Then I love it. I love it.
And it's like, man, look at them. They're beautiful. They're awesome. They're fantastic. I couldn't ask for anything different. And
Dude, there's memes on that.
Yeah, okay.
Where people will be like, I can't wait for my kid to fall asleep, or like I
Yeah.
need space for my kid.
Yeah, and then
but then you start watching videos crying how much you love your kid.
No, that's exactly. I mean,
that's
yeah.
literally what happened.
No, that is, yeah. So textbook, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, like we're like, hurry up, get them in bed so we
like,
can breathe.
oh.
And then like we're sitting back just thinking about them. Right. And so that's quite literally what's happening. And like for all the challenge and all the gut wrenching, they're a true blessing. And we thank God for them every day.
Yeah.
And they're a gift. And that's it.
Yeah, and I think people don't also look at how kids benefit you.
Oh,
right?
Man,
It's
100%.
your character growth and your development, decentering yourself from your experience.
100%. I've become much less selfish being a father.
Yeah.
At least I'm pretty sure that I have, but I would say that I'm aware of certain areas that I've had to be, and I'm sure that I can still grow to be even more. Um, I should. I think I gave an oxymoron earlier. I said less selfish, like, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay, no, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I'm also thinking more selfless.
Yes. Right. More
Right.
selfless. Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge pivotal factor to character development. And it's so important. But I think having children teaches you that. But again, having your spouse and your partner there on the same page as you with how that looks, I can't tell you how many times I've come home and just told my wife, like, I thank God for you. Thank you. Like, for just, she's ready to pull her hair out at the end of the day when I get home. And it's like, okay. Like,
Right. Yeah. Like,
and yeah, like she's feeling it. And,
mm,
but even that aside, when days go well, it's just, what would I do?
mm.
A wife like that is not that replaceable.
A wife like that is not that replaceable.
No. And that's why I'm like, man,
Yeah.
these guys have low standards.
Yeah.
It's like all you want is a baby maker.
Right.
Like,
Right. Like,
that's-
yeah, like
that's a
the
low standard.
You saying replaceable, that says a lot.
That's
about,
a low standard.
Yeah.
Because, and I think to your point too, it's like, well, hey, your mothers were wives.
Exactly.
What's the deal? Your daughter's going to be a wife.
Exactly. That's the irony of it.
Yeah.
It's like we can't say that because the very people we're choosing over the other is
You're now setting up.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
You're telling your daughter, hey, look, this is what you should expect. Just
Right.
get ready.
Yeah. When you get married, replaceable. You're replaceable. Right. And
Yeah.
it speaks to, so, there's this thing I do here, right, is, and I've asked you this before, because a friend of mine who also gave birth to they had a daughter, his wife gave birth. He said when he saw his daughter for the first time, immediately he felt a love he had never felt for anyone, and this dude loves his wife. He said he had never felt this love for anyone. It's just something about your child that it's like a biological attachment that come, and he's like, dude, it's like, I would do anything for this child. And it's like, this is the first time I felt that. And maybe people maybe that's what they're alluding to, and they say like daughter first. It's like, I just feel this attachment to my, you know what I'm saying? Like there's nothing they can do that would make me not kill for them, right? Like we talked about that, right? Like,
no, that adage is one that I've said a lot, and
yeah,
it's because it's true. It's like when you have a daughter, or rather, I'll back up and say when you have a son, and I learned this because I had my son last, and it is totally true. When you have a son, you realize who you would die for, right? Not that I wouldn't die for my daughters, but it's a different type of sense. When you have a daughter, you realize who you would kill for. Right. It's true.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a different.
There's a different
feeling.
nature in there to where all of a sudden it just
It's so innate.
beckons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's 2 points here. So one worth noting is that both my wife and I know this, like hands down, if I was put on the chopping block and my wife was asked to choose between me and our kids, I know she would choose our kids, and I would want her to.
Right. And she'd probably want you to.
And she would want
as
me
well.
to do the same. Like, it's like, that's not even I don't even have to
Question.
take a second glance at that. It's like, no, done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, the other part of this that I think is really interesting, and this is really important to bring up too. So, Frankel talked about work with a mother who had lost a child, right? And trying to get over that process, right? And trying to determine, okay, how do we deal with this situation? And the mother had lost her daughter, and at least I might believe it was a daughter. And I'm trying to remember the exact circumstances, and I don't quite remember the exact ones, but I believe the child was young, like 1 or 2 years old. However, the key factor here is the way that he approached this topic, because there was an immense and an inordinate amount of guilt that was associated with the scenario, and that's what obviously this woman was seeing Frankel for.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, as is extremely common, right, the parent would desire to be replaced with the child.
Like, I wish
I had, yes,
Yeah.
I wish I had gone,
because the loss of a child is
Yes.
just, it's one of the most unnatural deaths that people
Unshakable.
experience. Unshakable.
unquenchable.
Yeah.
It's a thirst that can't be quenched.
Mm.
However, in his work, he describes this approach, and I think it's extremely palpable and extremely important to understand, in that the way that they came to closure with this topic was recognizing that this question of, would the mother really have wanted her daughter to grow up without a mother?
Mm.
And how would that have been for the child? And arguably, would she want her child to bear that pain? Because in the current context, with what Frankel believed and what this woman believed, the child was not suffering anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The child was in no pain. The child was not dealing with inordinate amount of grief day in and day out. Memories that couldn't be quenched. But the mother had the largest burden of them all. And that's what Frankel was pointing to. This notion that, okay, if one of the two of you had to deal with the most unshakable pain that could be bared to a human being, who would you rather take? Would you rather take that, or would you rather your child take that?
Yeah. Wow.
That was extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Because it does put an entirely different twist on this.
Yeah. Right. Living a life, a child living a life without their parent. That's another. That's a whole other thing too,
Yes,
right?
100%.
Man, yeah, that's okay. So we are speaking to this like innate sense of bonding that one feels to their child, which I think goes back to what spouses will say, like, my child needs me, I need to be there for my child, right? But then again, alluding back to our previous episode on the brutal truth about marriage, is that yes, your wife is replaceable. Technically, like,
Sure, everybody's replaceable.
yeah, everyone's replaceable.
In technicality.
Yeah. But that's what makes it so special as well, is that you chose your wife and your wife chose you, and you choosing each other is what gave birth to your child. Is that choice of each other. Like, shouldn't that be cherished and valued? Or are we now similar to what C.S. Lewis said about like lust, right? It's like, who needs the carton when the cigarettes have been smoked, right? It's like, oh, now that your wife has given you what you needed, it's like, put wife to the side because kids are here, right? Or put husband to the side because the kids are here. It's like, is that why? So what happens when the kids grow up and they leave the house? What happens to the marriage? Why are we still in this? Because you're, like you said, like, the father's job is to raise the kid. So the kid has to leave if you're to be successful. The kid has to grow up, and you now be left with the same spouse that made this all possible in the first place. And yet we're saying, oh, they're replaceable.
No big deal.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think of this quote when I hear you talking about what you're saying, and it's a quote by Chuck Swindoll. I don't know if you ever listened to him. Like,
no,
he was like an old school preacher.
Yeah.
But he said, a family is a place where principles are hammered and honed on the anvil of everyday living.
Say that again.
A family is a place where principles are hammered and honed on the anvil of everyday living.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Man, that's it. That imagery is like, yeah, that's like,
Well, and it's heavy.
yeah, exactly.
It's heavy.
It's like,
and it brings.
This is not soft.
No, it's not soft. And I'm glad you brought up that conversation we had about marriage, because arguably, family is even more challenging because it encompasses marriage in and of itself. Your family is also made up of your marriage.
Okay, could you explain that?
So in essence, okay, so your marriage is a part of your family.
Mhm.
Your marriage with your wife is a part of the family that you are growing.
Yes.
So in essence, then like if your marriage has some measure of difficulty and challenge that's behest to it,
Mhm.
your family has it inordinately more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just by nature of it.
Mhm.
And so because of that, I would say that it's even more, it's just even more intense, and therefore also even more valuable.
Yeah. But we just do this thing where we compartmentalize.
Yeah, what do you mean?
We're so good at saying, "Oh yeah, man, like my kids are successful, like they're doing well in school, they have friends, they have social life." And I don't want to get them involved, but me and my husband, we've just been struggling lately, and we're going through this, and I just don't want it to affect the kids.
Classic.
Too late.
Classic.
Guess what?
It already
Too
did.
late.
And
it already affected the kids.
And I think that's so hard, like, because in most cases, people are trying so hard.
Good intentions. Good intentions. Trying hard.
You know what they say about good intentions.
Right. Exactly. Right. People are trying, and that's, yeah.
And no, I think so. I think that sometimes we need things in our life to show us whether or not we are actually trying to the best of our ability and when we are not. I will say that in my own life, there have been no greater, more fundamental lessons I've taken from failure than the failures I've had with my family. The failures I've made as a father or as a husband have been the most valuable lessons I have learned.
Same. Yeah. As a husband.
So in essence, it is literally the most valuable place.
Wow.
It's interesting. And I think that's why people like Desmond Tutu said what he said, in that you don't choose your family, they're God's gift to you as you are to them. And when I think of like a gift, I think of a gift being something that we don't deserve inherently just because we deserve it. But it can still be challenging.
The gift.
It can still be heart-wrenching. It can still be frustrating. But it's still a gift.
Yeah.
And it's an irreplaceable one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things that's like, like you said, and, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because you talked about how your kids are frustrating you. You're like, man, go to bed. You want to get them to bed. Full day. You're like, and then you're looking through the phone, looking at the photos,
pictures,
right?
Yeah.
How often does that happen though with our spouses, where it's like, man, just my wife is just like really driving me up the wall, and then it's like, and then you know what I mean, like, man,
Okay,
and that's part of what we do in couples therapy is like, the first session, always I'll ask them, why you guys here, and they're just like going at each other, and just at their wits' end, like we're on the verge of breaking up, we need help, explaining their issues, and in the first session I'll be like, take me back to when you first met.
Yeah.
And it's like straight up Gottman, like this is research, like Gottman therapy, like, and there's specific questions you ask. Like, what were some of those early days? Like, why of all the
people,
3.5 billion people in the world, why them?
Yep.
And it's like taking you back memory lane. It's like why did you choose them in the first place?
And we must have read the same book or something. That's crazy. You do that too?
Yeah. So credit to the Gottmans. Credit to the Gottmans.
Yeah.
So and that's to help you cultivate the practice.
Yeah.
Right. Of realizing, not forgetting the gift.
Exactly.
Because when you understand and remember that it's a gift, that your wife, your spouse is a gift, you can then begin to maybe try to reprioritize in your head, right? Maybe your spouse has been deprioritized.
Well, I think one of the things that leads people to divorce and separation is thinking that they deserve better.
Yeah. Yep.
What I'm not talking about is areas of abuse and neglect.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. So let's put that out of our minds for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But outside of this, people are entitled, and we're prone to be entitled.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, I don't believe that by nature, we just automatically go towards the things that are best for us. Perhaps sometimes, like, we can learn that, but that's still something you learn.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, we denigrate. And I would argue that more often than not, we become selfishly focused on us. What we need, what we don't have. Wouldn't it be so much better if?
Right. But then it oftentimes, it's the way it's spoken from. You're like, I'm the most selfless. Like, I'm giving to the I'm doing this for my kids. I'm working so hard at work. Like, I just need a break. Right.
Yeah. Can't you see what I'm doing?
Yeah. And you're not doing as much.
Yeah.
Keeping score.
Yeah. 100%.
Or you're not appreciating or seeing what I'm doing.
You don't see me.
Yeah. Classic.
No, it is. It is.
Right.
And I would say that that's, unfortunately, and this is where I would say the danger is sometimes when people get into therapy, is they get into therapy perhaps sometime, and maybe, hey, maybe on the offset, maybe they start therapy with saying like, all right, like, well, yeah, maybe I need to work on myself. I'm having some challenges here, but they don't actually conscientiously try to remove their own blind spots and how they evaluate this.
Mm-hmm.
And how they evaluate their propensity to, and I would say this is a human problem, how we evaluate our propensity, and I'm just going to be blunt, to really screw things up if we're not careful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And how much we are co-conspirators in our own.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Like, we've brought that up before. I think, and most of this, I would say most times when people go to therapy, they're looking for someone else to help tell them a story.
Yeah.
They're looking for another author.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or they're trying to tell their story and get it reaffirmed, get somebody else to publish it.
Yeah, and that's what makes therapy hard for the therapists.
100%, because the therapist doesn't know which way is up half the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, wait a second, did this? And then you get the couple in there, right? And you're like, wait a second, did you copyright, plagiarize?
Yeah,
somebody else wrote this story, but it wasn't you.
It wasn't you. It wasn't you. Yeah. So, yeah, it's and that's the thing is like to get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'll choose my wife replaceable, right? It might not say so much about your wife as it might say about you. And so be careful when you make that judgment, when you make that conclusion, come to that conclusion of like, yeah, dude, what does it say about me? As the other spouse.
that, I think people are scared to ask that question. And maybe they're not. Maybe sometimes they're not. But I think a lot of times they are.
Mm. And there's just something also about, and one of another YouTuber, counselor, Dr. John Deloney, he talks about the use of needs versus like desire and want. That, you know, oftentimes with partners, we use the word need when it comes to like our kids, and like my kid needs me, right? Like I'm obligated to my kid. Like this is tasks I need to do. And so when your partner comes and starts asking you for things they need, it's just another list on the endless list of chores. It's another task on the endless list of chores versus the word desire. Like I want you. I desire you. And yes, again, technically you're replaceable, but I want you. I desire you. And it's that wanting, it's that desiring of each other that allows us to be so close and to be bonded to each other in a way that we can now attend to those who need us in a more fulfilled and overflowing way.
I think we even brought that up too in the conversation.
marriage episode?
Yeah. Well, actually,
Yeah.
so in the conversation about intimacy,
Yeah. True.
right?
Yep.
Like, is sex a want or a need?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, you could argue that it's a need for a relationship to have, like, on a premise, but by and large, it's the desire. And it's even more powerful when we treat it as such.
Mm.
And I guess we did mention this in marriage as well. It's like, there's a difference between saying, like, I need you to your partner or spouse versus I desire you, right? Because everyone wants to be desired.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we've kind of argued the point of like wife
Yeah.
first, then daughter.
Yeah.
You harkening back to what you said earlier about mother, right? That's another big one, is that oftentimes, you know, I see people struggling to separate where does parents come in versus spouse come in, and they carry that parental relationship a little far in a relationship, and it's also like that's also breeds a lot of issues.
Resentment.
Right? Resentment. Yeah. So one of the things that we were advised earlier on during couples counseling is that, you know, you gotta leave and cleave, right? That's the
Yeah.
biblical term, right?
Sure.
Like leave your parents and cleave to your wife, because, you know, one of the things that my wife and I dealt with was our intercultural differences, and my parents having the more dominant culture in terms of like stronger cultural preferences. They were a little slower to accept my wife. Now my parents love her and everything, and my wife knows that, and we're good. But earlier on, it took more time, just because like I was approaching relationships in a very Western way, and they weren't used to that, and so I had to like kind of take it slow. And so, you know, at some point, like a few months in, I'm, you know, hanging out with my wife's parents, because that's normal here. It's like you go meet the family, it's all good. But that's in Kenya, dude. No, like when the first time that I spent a night at my wife's parents' house, and this is like, again, like we're not sleeping in the same room. Like I'm sleeping in a different room. My parents were livid. Like they were like, my mom was like, "This is not Christian." Like, you know, like this is wrong. You're not like they were so uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally.
Like, how can you're just a child. How can you go stay in you're just dating? Like that, how disrespectful is that? Because that never happens in at least traditionally in Kenya. So they couldn't wrap their minds around it. And so because of that, we had a lot of discussions in like premarital counseling about like, at what point do you put your parents' desires and you wanting to respect, honor your parents, and then you have this new partner that you're bringing into your life, and it's like, once at one point the question was like, what if your parents never agree to you dating or marrying a wife? What if they never agree? You got to make a choice at some point. At some point, one's got to give, and what's it gonna be? And that's a hard decision for a lot of people. But assuming now you marry, right? Assuming you choose your wife comes first now. And there are many reasons why you want that to be the case. One of the reasons that was highlighted for us again was that when your spouse does something wrong to you, like just even like a minor thing, and you're get ticked off, and you go report it to your parents, like, Dad, this is what dude, my husband did to my spouse did this to me. Your parents your parents are way less forgiving than you are, because you're not gonna remember it
100%.
But your parents, like, they'll pick their kid any day over their kid's spouse
All the time.
So they're gonna be way more resentful, way more bitter towards your spouse now, and now you've created this dynamic where you're just making chaos for yourself, right? And that's the thing I tell people is like, you need to set boundaries with your parents. If you're gonna complain about your spouse, go do it to a counselor. Go do it but never go back to your parents. Have you seen that in your
All too often.
all too often?
All too often.
All too often.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that is, I would say for younger relationships rather, like,
Yeah.
you see that more frequently.
Mhm.
And it's just scenarios to where, or if there's high volatility in the
Right.
relationship.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, again, people don't know how to deal with their blind spots. People don't know how to deal with the fact that they want attention for them and for someone to take their side.
Mm.
So the easiest person to take my side is mommy and daddy.
Mm.
Right. Maybe not daddy, but definitely mommy. Unless I'm a daughter, and then it's going to be daddy.
Yeah.
If one of my daughters comes and tells me 20 years down the line, when they're allowed to date,
Mhm.
that her boy, just kidding. So, like,
Right,
But
exactly.
if
You're
one of
gonna
my daughters
obviously
tells me,
take your
"Hey, yeah,
daughters.
my boy, I don't know what to do," like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be so hard for me to disconnect from that reality to say, "All right, yeah, no, honey, no problem. I'll just bury him. Not a big deal." Like,
No,
right.
we can take care of this.
We can take,
easy.
yeah, no problem, right? There's no problem, right? But in
Right.
reality, I need to be very careful with that, which is why they'll probably tell their mother.
Which is why. Yeah.
No, but I mean, in all
Yeah.
seriousness, though, like, I think inside of a marriage, my hope for my children is that, yeah, to some level, they disconnect from what they share with me. As heart wrenching as that is, because you want to be close to your kids, you spent the better part of your life cultivating that, right?
Mm,
And then it's going to disappear.
yeah. Right. But that's part of successfully raising them,
Yes.
is instilling in those values, those principles, that they can make those decisions. And again, like, I'm all for like parental consultation prior to like marriage, right? I do think parents can provide some helpful perspective, but like when
100%.
you make that decision and you create a new family unit, there has to be a good level of boundary that comes into play.
Good fences make better families.
Good fences make better families. Okay.
I think that was originally said about neighbors, but I think it's true
Oh
with
yeah, okay,
families.
yeah. Good fences make better families. Yeah, I love that. So
Yeah. so-
ranking.
I mean, absolutely mother, daughter, excuse me.
Mother, daughter, wife.
Yeah, mother, daughter, wife. Not the one I would choose. I would say wife, daughter, mother.
Yeah.
And
Same.
in to capsulate this, we also talked about family, but I just want to tie it up with a bow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, and it's a short one. And I'm not sure that Michael J. Fox actually said this. I'm curious whether he did, because I haven't found some tabloid where he was famously quoted for saying this. But Google says he said it, so I'm going to go with it. But evidently he said that family is not an important thing. It's everything.
Ooh.
And it's Michael J. Fox. It's Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah. So is that...
It's got to be
It's
close
gotta be,
to
yeah.
it.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's everything.
That was a good conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Let's do it again
Thanks
sometime.
let's do it again. Let's react to more videos.
Maybe next week.
All right.